Back in April of this year, Zillow called Kansas City one of the hottest housing markets in the country. Limited inventory and a frenzy of home buyers meant houses didn't sit on the market too long, and you'd expect this kind of crazy market back when we saw historic lows in mortgage rates. Kansas City had record low inventory levels and buyers were locking in rates as low as 2 or 2.5%. But back when this article was written, average mortgage rates were a lot closer to 7%. So why was the market still one of the hottest in the country back in April, and where are we headed next?
Hi, I'm Mason Marrs, and this is my twin brother Micah. We're a local real estate team right here in Kansas City. Our team helps people relocate to the KC metro area, and if you're considering a move to Kansas City, we would love to be your guides. Since around 2016, the real estate market in Kansas City has looked similar to a lot of other major markets around the country. We had way more buyers than we had homes for sale, so we saw strong price appreciation and big equity gains. When COVID hit back in the spring of 2020, this trend continued even more aggressively.
Interest rates were very low. People who bought homes 5 or 10 years prior to the start of the pandemic had great equity and were looking to upgrade. But still, one of the things we heard from clients most often during this time was, "I'd love to sell my home, but I'm afraid I won't be able to find a new one." Inventory levels were so low here during COVID that there were all kinds of people who would have sold their homes but decided to wait for fear that they wouldn't be able to find a new place they loved in the competitive market.
This meant that homes that would have gone to market never did, which kept us in this cycle of too many buyers chasing a very small number of homes.
In order to understand where things might be headed, we need to understand just a little bit about how we got here. Like we said before, we've been experiencing low inventory levels here since well before the pandemic, and Kansas City is not alone. Several other major markets around the country have very similar stories.
The market has been greatly undersupplied ever since the real estate crash of 2008. This is true for the resale market, but it's particularly evident when you look at new builds. New construction got absolutely hammered in the wake of the crash, and the process to build back some of that inventory of new homes is only just now starting to catch up to the levels we saw prior to the crash.
Underbuilding for the last decade and a half has forced more and more buyers to look for homes on the resale market, and there simply aren't enough homes to keep up with the demand.
Right now in Kansas City, we've seen a bit of an uptick in inventory thanks to rising interest rates over the last 2 years. This means there are more homes for sale than there used to be, and buyers are facing less competition than before.
But it's important that we understand this information in context. You'll often hear us talk about the month's supply of homes at a given moment. For example, right now in Kansas City, there's a 2.2 month supply of homes. This simply means that if we stopped putting houses on the market today, it would take us about 2 months to sell all of the homes that are currently listed. We use this stat to measure inventory levels and gain knowledge about what that particular market might look like for a buyer or a seller.
Anything from 4 to 6 months is what we call a balanced market, while anything greater than 6 months is a buyer's market, and anything less than 3 months is a seller's market. So right now in Kansas City, there are still far more buyers than there are homes available for sale, even when you account for the uptick in inventory caused by the rising interest rates. So while you'll face less competition than you would have a year or two ago, we're still in a seller's market.
So is now still a good time to buy in Kansas City, or should you wait? Where are things headed the rest of this year and maybe even beyond it? There's been a lot of talk around interest rates, and people often ask when we think they might start to come down and how that might affect the market here. I often wish we had a crystal ball and could answer that question definitively, but we'll do our best to interpret the data so you can make the decision that makes the most sense for you.
One of the questions we've been getting from clients recently is the market in Kansas City going to crash? Are we going to see this big correction in prices anytime soon? As far as we can tell based on the data, something like that just isn't in the cards. And there are a few reasons for this. To start, like we said before, demand is still far outpacing the supply of available homes for sale. The last time the real estate market crashed, supply numbers were way up. The new construction market saw 4 consecutive years of record-setting numbers in terms of units completed. This situation today is very different.
The second thing to consider is the number of foreclosures we're seeing. Foreclosures were on the rise in the couple of years leading up to the crash and peaked in 2009. They've been on a downward trend since then and hit their lowest point during the foreclosure moratorium that we saw during the pandemic. Once that moratorium expired, we started to see foreclosures tick up again, and a lot of people had concerns that this was a bad sign for the market. While foreclosures are up compared to the last few years, they're right in line with where they were pre-pandemic and certainly far below where they were leading up to and following the crash.
People also have a lot more equity in their houses today than they did before the crash. Lending regulations have tightened quite a bit since then, and the days of getting a loan if you could fog a mirror are over. People are coming to the table with more money down and need to present a full, clear financial picture before a lender will give the green light for a mortgage. It's also important to note that the percentage of homes today that are mortgage-free is at its highest level since 2005. More equity means more protection for homeowners if values do start to trend downward.
This brings us to mortgage rates. Are they going to come down, and what happens if and when they do? Should you wait to buy a home until these rates come down? When exactly they'll come down is impossible to predict with certainty, but it's safe to say that we need some changes in the economy before things start to move in that direction. When the Fed sees inflation and job creation numbers slow down, they'll be spurred to take action to lower the Fed funds rate. This rate isn't directly tied to mortgage rates, but it does impact them a great deal.
Experts from Fannie Mae and the Mortgage Bankers Association are forecasting modest cuts to mortgage rates into 2025. Barring some massive economic recession, it's unlikely we'll see rates anywhere near 3% again.
So what does all this mean for the market here in KC, and should you wait to jump in? That's a decision only you can make, but you'll want to run the numbers to see how much a drop in mortgage rates may actually change the math. This will of course change based on how much you're planning on borrowing, but the numbers may not be as dramatically different as you think.
The other thing to think about is what happens in the market when rates do come down. Right now, as many as 2/3 of home buyers are sitting on the sidelines delaying their purchase until mortgage rates drop. If they do get their wish, the market will be flooded with new buyers who are ready to buy the home they've been waiting on. But like we talked about a minute ago, we'll still have a shortage of available homes for sale.
This means that we're likely to see increased competition, which means you're likely to pay more for the home you want. If they can afford it, some buyers are instead choosing to buy now and will choose to refinance later if rates do come down. This allows them to get into the home they want now without the crazy frenzy of buyers, and they can still take advantage of lower rates and a lower payment if they choose to refinance down the road.
So what do you think? Is now the right time to buy? There are many more things that influence this decision beyond just the financial piece. So of course, no one can make that decision for you. Our goal is simply to give you things to think about as you decide what's best for you. If you're considering buying, selling, or investing in Kansas City, we want to be your real estate agents. Click the link below to book a call.